brand new reacting to true stories, scary animations. Oh, we back with another one. So hurry up, go, get your snacks, get to the kitchen and get the chips and the popcorn and the peanuts and the candy and the juice and the soda and the water. All the snacks you can get because it's about to get scary. And you already know, boy, you better get that out of here. And gotta give a shout out to MJV Animations. They're the ones that made these amazing animations we're about to watch. Subscribe to them, check them out. And comment down below when your birthday is. Let me know. And let go. Are you ready? Got your blankets? All right, let's do it.
Some nights just never seem to go away, no matter how much you tell them to leave. It's like they stamp themselves into your memory. People notice the burns but never know the pain as if it were their own. I doubt anyone can relate to the night my truck gave out on the side of that freeway. I was 20 at the time, broke like any other kid my age, driving a vehicle that coughed more than it purred or impressed the girls. I couldn't even estimate how much gas was in the tank after the gauge went out on me, so I reset my trip odometer every time I filled up. It was sketchy to say the least, but the method worked well enough to get me from point A to point B, at least until tonight. I had just visited my friend in San Antonio, and I was cruising down Route 90 with just the hum of tires traversing the asphalt in the background. Occasionally I saw a jackrabbit dart in whichever direction. It was close to midnight now. The road was so empty it felt like I was the only one in the state still awake, trying to get somewhere. That's when my engine sputtered. Oh no, not now. I gripped the wheel, praying to prevent the inevitable disaster ahead of me. Come on, you old truck, not now. I tapped on gas. Nothing but the truck started, lurching forward in a last desperate attempt, before completely dying on me. The headlights decided they wanted to quit on me too, leaving with nothing but a pocket of darkness and endless trees for a background. Then I tried my next logical course of action, my phone. I grabbed it in hopes that it still had no bars. Great. Well, throw on the hazards. There they went. The click noise signaling my emergency was the only noise interrupting the night's eerie calm. Someone's got to pass soon, I told myself. I started to doze off by the time the headlights appeared in the mirror. I looked at my phone and an hour had passed. I was relieved, that is, until the car didn't keep its beams on. It pulled up behind me, lights off, and slowly came to a halt on the shoulder. The engine shut off moments later, then silence. I stared in my rearview mirror to see who it was, but nothing moved. That's not good. I assumed any second now that the door would open, a voice would call out, or some sort of movement. Nothing. Just a black truck sitting too close for comfort and an occupant who had yet to reveal themselves. After waiting for 10 seconds, curiosity got the best of me. That, and the desperation of the situation. I stepped into the cold, yelling out, "Hey." I could hear my voice carry in the distance. No response.
Don't walk up to it.
I got closer. I was committed by now. The truck grew larger as I approached, but I still couldn't get a picture of the figure inside. The voice would call out, or some sort of movement. Nothing. Maybe I should have just stayed inside. Finally, the door creaked. A tall, broad-shouldered man emerged slowly from the vehicle, stepping outside without a sound. From the glow of my hazards, I could see his wide grin. He finally asked, "You all right, buddy?" Ran out of gas, I responded nervously. "That's a shame." His smile started to send alarm signals shooting. "Give me a hand with something, would you?" The request wouldn't be a problem under normal circumstances, but considering my truck no longer worked, my phone had no service in the middle of the night, with a mysterious man who's now asking for help. Calm, yet some sort of ferocity tempered underneath the surface. I hesitated. "I don't think I can." The man chuckled softly, as if my response wasn't a genuine answer. He tilted his head, then demanded suddenly, "Empty your pockets then." What? I knew something was wrong, but what were my options? There was no one around, and I didn't know whether this man had a knife or a gun in his pockets. I didn't have any weapons, and at this point, I'm considering going back to my car and locking it. My chest is clenching at this point. Empty your pockets, he repeated again.
Ew.
Only this time his smile widened. He got closer. This was all spiraling too fast for me to process. The trees were too still, the night too quiet, and that grin, that stupid, terrifying grin. This could escalate in moments. And then it did. The man lunged at me,
Ooh.
his smile dropping pretentiously. He made an attempt to grab me as his voice dropped to a rumble. Don't make me hurt you. I didn't take any chances to find out what the man
Why'd
wanted.
the color of your hair change?
Adrenaline kicked. I did the only thing I could do to survive. Escape. I darted from the asphalt into the trees. My sneakers seemed to cut off my circulation. I collided with branches but pressed on through the pain, running and zigzagging
Dang, he
blindly.
runs weird.
Heavy footsteps could be heard not far behind. And then I heard it. I'll kill you.
Go, man!
The man roared in the background, not far from. He was traversing through the trees at a faster rate than I was. I started to gain some distance, thankfully. The man clearly wasn't in as great a shape as I was, which might have been the only thing keeping me alive through the night. I made the split-second decision to hide behind a tree, crouch low, and force my breathing to be shallow and quiet. Every nerve in my body screamed to keep running, but I didn't. I waited, frozen, heart hammering in my chest. His footsteps continued to draw closer. He was within 20 feet now. The leaves crunched nearby. I'll find you, kid, he yelled aloud. Don't think that I won't. There was silence after that. It was minutes of this, then minutes turned into hours. I didn't move. My legs were cramping. My teeth chattered. But I wasn't about to lose my cover to discomfort. I would wait for dawn. And like that, the pale light appeared again. I gave it another 20 minutes before I decided to head back to the row. There was my truck. This time the door was ajar. My glove box was open. The man's truck was gone, though. I sat in my car, breathing shallowly as I tried to recover my whereabouts. That's when I saw it. On the dash was a crumpled receipt from my glove box that had been smoothed flat to write a message. In a jagged handwriting style, it read, "Don't run next time, Jason."
No! And that's why I don't drive in the middle of nowhere, okay? Don't go, geez. Or if you have a car, like get a nice new car that's not gonna break down in the middle of the woods. Otherwise, you're gonna have to deal with that guy. Not today, Satan. Okay, don't go anywhere. Let's go ahead and watch one more. Illegal!
I was 16 years old when this happened. By then, I'd come to enjoy being home alone. Not to sneak friends over, though. I just liked being able to make myself dinner, play whatever I wanted on the TV, and go to bed whenever I felt like it. One night, however, I wasn't truly alone. From sunset to midnight, my routine was the same. When I felt tired, I crawled into bed, then fell asleep without ever noticing anything out of the ordinary. Not until I was dreaming. At least, I thought I was in a dream when I first heard it. The sound of someone praying. It was muffled, yet a constant, uninterrupted prayer. A man's voice, raspy, and for some reason, desperate. After listening to it for who knows how long, I finally realized it wasn't a dream. The sound suddenly ripped me out of my sleep like a screeching alarm clock, leaving me with a burning question. Who the hell in this house was praying? We weren't religious. We certainly didn't practice at home. And most importantly, I was supposed to be alone. Once I was fully awake, I located the source of the sound. It was right outside my window. The chill shot through my body and lingered, every hair on my body standing on end. I slowly rose out of bed, then crept over to my window and pulled back the curtain the slightest bit. Outside in the backyard, there was a man hunched over on his knees, clutching a Bible and praying, his face pointed to the ground. The worst part about him was the fact he was almost naked, wearing nothing but a pair of briefs.
Gross.
He was older, a bit fat. His hairy white skin sagged. Honestly, I didn't know what the right move was, but I couldn't stand to let him stay there. My hands were shaking as I reached up and tapped the window, then asked him to leave as kindly as I could. He fell silent and looked up, staring with crazed, thoughtless eyes. He stared at me for an eternal moment before looking back down and returning to his prayer. Suddenly, I pounded on the window and shouted at him as loud as I could to get away from my house. I was hoping to scare him off, but it seemed to only work halfway, as he stood rather calmly, then walked around the corner where I couldn't see him anymore. Feeling quite shaken up, I threw a blanket over my shoulders and walked out to the kitchen for a glass of water. As I tried to sit with trembling hands, I had a strong suspicion that this wasn't over. The crazy praying man was probably around. I stood looking out the kitchen window, waiting for a sign of him. A few minutes later, someone walked into view. This time, it was another man, and believe it or not, he was wearing a full priest's outfit with a Bible of his own in hand. This guy looked sharp and proper compared to the other one, but the fact that he was there at all was just as plain wrong. The priest, if he really was a priest, stood just a few feet from the window and asked a simple question. "May I have a word of prayer with you at your front door, my friend?"
No, sir.
I replied with a firm no, then I dropped the blinds right in front of his face and left the kitchen. From there, I sat down on the couch, clenching my jaw in disbelief. What kind of priest shows up at someone's house in the middle of the night? Why me? Then, not even a minute later, there was a knock at the door. I already knew who it was, but it felt pointless trying to ignore him as he already knew I was there. I got up and looked through the peephole, and sure enough, the priest was at the back door, but now he had company. The nearly naked man who was praying in the backyard had joined him, and was pacing back and forth on the porch behind him. I shouted at them both to go away. The priest just cupped his hand to his ear and said he couldn't hear me. I was at my wit's end. I went to the window next to the door and opened it just a few inches.
You dummy.
Then I bent down and screamed at them to leave. Instead of listening, the priest gave me a pitiful frown and a sob story. "Hey man, we just want to pray," he said. He gestured toward the other man and continued. "My friend here has terrible OCD. The only thing that helps him when he gets like this is to pray with a stranger. So we'd like it if we could just come in for a short prayer. Then we'll leave."
Nope.
Of course I didn't believe him, especially when I looked over to this friend of his. The freak had stopped pacing and was staring dead at me once again, breathing so heavily I could see his chest rising and falling. I didn't know what was going through his head, except that I didn't want it in my house, so I said I was sorry, then reached to close the window. As soon as I moved, the priest lunged and shoved his hand through the gap. He grabbed the window and tried to pull it open, but I put my whole body into slamming it down. I crushed his hand twice before he finally yanked it back in pain. Then I shut the window and locked it. Finally, I looked outside and said I was calling the police. I did so right away. By the time I was on the phone with the operator and looked back outside, however, the two men were gone. When the cops arrived, they didn't find any trace of them either. They seemed perplexed by my description of the two men, but told me about a break-in that had occurred the other night. I don't think those men were out to rob me, though. I think they had something much worse in mind. Either way, I decided not to tell my parents about what happened. Looking back, that was a dumb decision. But I didn't want them to strip away my freedom to be home alone, even though I was constantly afraid those weirdos would come back.
No! See, this is why you don't stay home alone. And if you do, don't answer the door. Keep the windows locked and the doors closed, and if you see somebody outside, just ignore them. But don't go anywhere, okay? Alright, don't leave me by myself. Let's go ahead and watch another one. Illegal!
After my sister went off to college, I thought I was lucky to have the house to myself.
Oh.
I might have been a bit too old to still be living at home, but it would be stupid to say no to free rent and groceries. Anyways, I wasn't too big on parties, so one night I had my girlfriend over to chill for a while. Mom was out of town for a conference and had mentioned that my sister would be coming home soon, but she hadn't told me when. Because of that, I figured I would have privacy. My girlfriend left pretty early. Her roommate was having a meltdown or something and needed help. I offered to help her out, but she told me she could take care of it and left around 10. It was just me, and I was a bit buzzed from the 3 beers I had put back. I put on a movie and sank into the couch. In the process, I had another 2 beers and was starting to actually feel it. A few hours later, something scraped against the patio near the front door. I sat up a bit, too out of it to pay much attention. The doorknob jiggled, then clicked, and the door swung open. I immediately relaxed. The door was locked, so only a family member could get in. I called out, thinking it was Mom, but whoever it was didn't respond. With a grunt and more effort than I was hoping to put in, I turned to find the figure at the door. It was pretty dark, so I couldn't get a good look at them, but it was a woman, much thinner than Mom. Her hair was longer too, and she dragged something behind her. I realized it must have been my sister. Before I could say hello, she lumbered up the stairs, the bag she dragged thudding against each step. By that point, I could barely keep my eyes open, so I decided to meet my sister in the morning and crash on the couch. I didn't sleep for long. A bit past midnight, I heard banging in the kitchen, like someone was rummaging through all the cabinets and chucking whatever they didn't like to the floor. Now that I was up, I saw my phone lit up with a message. I picked it up and saw a text message from my mom. She was asking me if I could pick up my sister at the train station the next morning. I shot a text back, telling her my sister was already there. The noises continued in the kitchen. When I got a reply, it made a loud ding, and the kitchen went silent. Mom had messaged me that my sister had just updated her from a hotel 50 miles from me. I panicked, knowing that the person in the kitchen was a complete stranger. Footsteps slowly approached me, dragging on the hard wood and squeaking. I jumped off and faced the kitchen, the person rounded the corner into the living room. The only light came from the TV. Her face was lit up a ghost-like blue. She was disgustingly thin with sunken eyes and missing patches of hair. She had a container filled with forgotten leftover soup that she shoveled into her mouth with her bare hands. I sprinted to the hallway and heard her slowly trailing behind.
Dang, you run slow.
I locked myself in the bathroom and backed against the far wall. I could see her dirty feet through the gap between the door and the floor. It was quiet for a bit. I could only hear my own breath. Then she started giggling. For nearly a minute, she giggled to herself, but her laughter turned to tears. She was pressed against the door, sobbing and banging her head against the wood. I texted Mom that there was someone dangerous in the house, then called the police. While I waited in the darkness, she started whispering nonsense through the crack in the door. Finally, I heard sirens from outside, and the woman took off down the hall. After an hour, the cops knocked on the bathroom door and told me it was okay to come out again. A few days later, I was told by the police that the woman was homeless and mentally ill after years of drug abuse. They had found her and put her in an institution. Since then, I haven't had a single good night of sleep. Now, every time I hear someone come through the front door, I grab onto one of the many weapons I've hidden around the house and clutch it to my chest, until I know for a fact there's someone I can trust.
No! Man, see, that's why I don't drink. I drink juice and soda, and that's about it. Nothing stronger. You got random homeless people getting into your house. How'd they get in without a key? Change the locks, my boy. But if you enjoyed this video, then go ahead and smack that like button. And yeah, I'ma see ya in the next one. Peace.